remember Hannah Cranston? So she was a pretty polarizing figure who was a host over on the Young Turks, who very often was on the main show. That was basically her job. She was a host. She was pretty often on there. You'd see a lot of videos of her being the host, usually filling in, and sometimes she would kind of be rotated into the, sort of starting lineup, if you will, as well. And she was a very polarizing figure. But, I think most people were not really a fan of Hannah Cranston. But recall that pretty much a year ago, I had done a video telling you guys that both Nomiki Konst and Hannah Cranston were laid off by the Young Turks. They did like a little rewiring, sort of a reroute that they did in terms of their business. They canceled Think Tank completely. It channeled over 1.1 million subscribers, in which Hannah Cranston was a host on. That channel has been completely canceled, and there are no more new videos for 8 months or so, or maybe longer than that. So that channel has been completely just defunct. There's no more uploads on there. They decided to cancel that. They also canceled, I believe, What the Flick and some other, other mini sub TYT shows. They decided to keep TYT Sports but get rid of all the other ones. So my reaction was kind of like, oh, the layoff of Nomiki Konst is pretty unfortunate because she actually did a lot of good, on the ground reporting, as well as actually really taking part in a lot of the, battles, if you will, the political battles. So there was a video of her, going after the DNC in the meeting, So those were really important things that she was doing. And she really brought a lot of valuable stuff to TYT. And that's why I was surprised as to why they laid her off. I don't understand why they laid off Nomiki Konst. It didn't make any sense. It was weird. Hannah Cranston, on the other hand, my personal opinion was, and this is the prevailing opinion of the vast, vast, vast majority of people, was that Hannah Cranston was not a very good host. She often actually gave TYT and the Young Turks a bad image, also made it more difficult to watch. Hannah Cranston simply was not a likable host. She often came off very just sort of uneducated in certain areas. Her delivery was not very good. And she was more on the social justice side than really talking about policies and serious stuff like that. Not that some of the things she talks about weren't as serious, but she's more about the social justice aspect of politics than anything else. And that kind of aspect turned a lot of people off. And I just really wasn't much of a fan of Hannah Cranston personally. So while it's anytime someone gets, laid off and lose their job, it sucks. It's terrible. I think that it was just the right direction for the Young Turks to go in. And, they kind of replaced her with what ended up seeming to be Brooke Thomas, who I certainly think is better than Hannah Cranston by a long shot. Because of, while Brooke Thomas, she seems to kind of, not have any sort of, expertise in, policy or any serious stuff like that. It's kind of like addition by subtraction, right? You kind of take away Hannah Cranston and you add someone else, who's better. And because you took away Hannah Cranston, the show is just immediately better. So I think overall the Young Turks is better with Hannah Cranston or without Hannah Cranston than with Hannah Cranston. And that is just simply the prevailing opinion amongst the vast majority of people. So this is what I came to you guys last summer, telling you guys. So where is Hannah Cranston? You may be asking this question. Over a year since her departure, after being laid off by the Young Turks, where is Hannah Cranston? What has she been doing? And what has her career gone on to? So this was her life update that she had posted, announcing the layoff. She posted this on Instagram and Twitter saying, I wanted to give you all a little life update. After nearly 4 amazing years, I am moving on from Think Tank and the Young Turks. I can't tell you all how much I've appreciated your support and you putting up with my face on your screens for all this time. I have some really big and exciting things coming and can't wait to share it all with you soon. Love and gratitude, H. So, she's basically, just saying that, she's departing and moving on from Think Tank and the Young Turks. She's moving on to future endeavors. And, what are those future endeavors? So obviously, first things first, they seem to have left on good terms, of course, is what seems to be here. And there's seems to be, from what I've seen, no indication that there's any other possibility that they left on any sort of bad terms. But what it seemed like Hannah Cranston had done pretty much right after that was she decided to start her own podcast. Now, this podcast here that she does is called Too Much to Handle with Hannah Cranston. This is available on pretty much every podcast platform there is. iTunes podcasts, Stitcher, and all those others. And if you want to know, and I'm going to show you guys a little clip here, this Instagram post where she posts this clip of her podcast, it said, "Women don't need to be empowered because we are already so filled with power. We just need to use it. Click the link in my bio to listen to the entire episode with my mom. Subscribe, rate, and review." And just kind of goes on like that. This is from 32 weeks ago. So this was pretty much what she was doing at the time, is what she was doing. She decided to start her own podcast. And, over on, here on iTunes, it's got 222 ratings, which is nothing to scoff at. So there are certainly some people who seem to have listened to the podcast. So, don't kind of throw it off as just something that was completely useless. It looks like some people actually watched it. But let us go ahead and check out this clip to see what it's about.
Oftentimes when we talk about feminism, when we talk about the future generation, we talk about women empowerment. And I don't think that women need to be empowered, because I think that women already are so filled with power. And I want women to awaken and use that power within themselves to demand and make change that's inclusive and intersectional and life-changing for the next generation. But I do think a lot of the change is going to lie within the powerful, within men, and men being not only allies to women, but also traitors to their own gender and calling them out when things are not right. Oftentimes when we talk about feminism.
That there's, you guys just saw, there's a clip that kind of tells you what her podcast is about. Now, like I told you earlier, she's always been more of a social justice type of progressive. And this kind of talk, certainly there seems to be an audience for this who likes listening to this kind of stuff. Personally, this isn't really for me. I mean, this podcast alone, it's the outreach. Let me read you the description here. It says, "Too Much to Handle with Hannah Cranston is a show for every single woman out there who has been told that she is too much. We're having the conversations you're already having behind closed doors, but nobody is talking about publicly." So it's like the advertised purpose and target audience, goal audience is for, women out there. So, obviously this isn't really going to be for someone like me personally, as well as when you start getting into conversations about, like, I don't know, traitors to their own gender. Not exactly sure what that even really means. Just kind of sounds odd in general, but, this kind of stuff is not for me, and it's probably not for you either. But this is the kind of stuff that she's really always wanted to do, and that's, why she started the podcast. This is what she talks about. I'm not sure if there's any revenue sources for this podcast. I don't know if she was even monetizing this podcast, if this was her sort of income at all. I don't know if that's what it was, because if you put podcasts on iTunes and stuff like that, you're not making any money. It's all free on iTunes, etc., etc. So I don't know if she's making any money from this, or if she was at this point. But this is, this is what you like to do. And if you want to have sort of more of an understanding of what kind of stuff she talks about in this podcast, this one is titled how to be truly happy. The previous one is how to overcome sexual hang-ups, how to find strength when you're feeling weak. This is the kind of stuff she talks about. So it's not really like, let's talk about like Medicare for all or anything like that. That's not really Hannah Cranston. That's not really who she is really at the core. Now, maybe she supports Medicare for all, who knows? But that's not really her thing to like do a podcast talking about stuff like that. It's more like, talk about this kind of stuff. That's always been her thing, and I think that's why people have not really been big fans of Hannah Cranston, is for that reason. So, another thing that was pretty major, depending on your opinion on this, but she actually was working on a presidential campaign, a Democratic presidential campaign. Now, there were a lot of candidates. As you guys know, this is a former candidate here, Eric Swalwell. So she was actually the director of social media for his campaign. So she posted this on Instagram. She said, "It's official. He is running for president of the United States of America, and I'm the director of social media for his campaign. Tune into Colbert Late Show tonight for the full announcement. P.S. This is why I've been so busy lately, so go follow Eric Swalwell to join the movement and make my life easier." So there are a couple differing opinions that I'm kind of conflicted on when it comes to this. So first of all, someone like Eric Swalwell doesn't support, things like Medicare for all. He's kind of in that John Delaney camp. So already he's not like a real progressive, but moreover, he's kind of a joke as a candidate in the first place. But you may say, "Oh, well, look, man, she can't turn down this opportunity. It's an opportunity to have a previous director of social media on your resume," which is like, okay, I see that too, but like if I'm a real progressive who supports Medicare for all, or just in general isn't like down to be with the joke campaign like Eric Swalwell, like seriously, bro, this guy's name is Swalwell. What is that? What is that, folks? What is that? It doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever. So, anyways, the point here before I get sidetracked on the name Swalwell, there's kind of differing stuff going on there, and I'm not really sure exactly which camp I am in on that one, but you can kind of come to your own conclusion on that one. Eric Swalwell made news about like a week to 10 days ago, because he was one of the first candidates. Richard Ojeda had already dropped out, so I think he's the second to have dropped out from the Democratic primary. So he's gone, which means my understanding of this is that Hannah Cranston is no longer the director of social media for Eric Swalwell, because there is no more Eric Swalwell campaign. She hasn't said anything about it, like announcing the end of the campaign or anything like that, but that's the only, sort of obvious implication that you can take from this happening. But I have to say, she didn't do a good job of being his social media director, I have to say. I mean, his social media outreach was trash. Even if you're like, let's say you already know you're not popular, right? But you're trying to get name recognition, you're trying to get your name out there. Like you can try to maximize ratios, like getting ratioed to at least get some name recognition. This campaign did nothing but get laughs for the sheer fact that he's polling at like 1% and looks like a doofus, and his last name is Swalwell. So sorry, but she just did a poor job as the social director of social media, and that's all I really have to say about that. But if you're wondering where Hannah Cranston has been, started her own podcast and was actually the director of social media for the Eric Swalwell campaign. Let me know if you wish Hannah Cranston was still at TYT. Let me know if you wish that she wasn't, or that you're happy that she's not there anymore. I'm definitely very curious to hear it.